The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hola everyone, welcome to Open, brought to you from BronxNet Studios, mi gente. I'm Rhina Valentin, your hosty Café con Leche every Friday. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading things off, we'll speak to ABC of Gender Identity author, designer, and illustrator Devika Dalal to discuss their A to Z alphabet book designed to normalize non-binary genders. Then we'll be joined by Performers To Spectators, COVID-19 NYC's producer and director Melisa Ramos and director of photography Miguel Miller as they discuss their new docu-series highlighting the resiliency of New York City creatives during the height of the pandemic. After that, we'll speak to Hamlet In Harlem's playwright and director, Alberto Ferreras, as he discusses the politically incorrect comedy that addresses important issues of relevance of the classic literature. Later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And lastly, this week's Open Artist Spotlight shines on Afro-Colombian musical ensemble Rebolu with a performance at the end of the show. So sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way because now we are officially open. Welcome to Open. I'm Rhina Valentin, your hosty Café con Leche for the next hour, coming to you from the newly upgraded BronxNet Studios, inviting you to get social with us online. That is, tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, don't forget, follow moi on Twitter, FB, Instagram, Insta Stories, and LinkedIn at Rhina Valentin. So it's Pride Month, mi gente, and as we celebrate the self-affirmation, dignity, equality, and increased visibility of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, our first guest is a creative art director and the author, designer, and illustrator of ABC of Gender Identity, an A to Z alphabet book designed to normalize non-binary genders. And the intention is to introduce a wider lens and promote greater diversity, inclusion, and acceptance within children. Here now to tell us more is ABC of Gender Identity author, designer, and illustrator Devika Dalal. Hi, Devika.
Hi. How's it going? It's great to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. And, let's just kick it off. We say, hey, happy Pride Month.
Yes, happy Pride Month.
And so, I didn't introduce your the other hats you wear, as we all do, right? We wear many hats. And so, working in the advertisement business, right? I mean, I know our interview is geared more towards your writing and this creative process. However, after researching you and seeing how many major labels you've worked with, how many brands, major brands, I might add, I mean, like Nike, LinkedIn, I mean, you're working with some high-level individuals there. And so I was just curious to know if through your work of advertising, was there a particular campaign that may have inspired you to create this book?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think there was necessarily one specific project that I worked on that inspired me to write this book, but it was really my journey on all of them. A big part of my job is creative problem solving. So with every campaign I work on, we receive a problem, and that's kind of my job then to kind of figure out how to how to solve that problem in a creative and compelling and engaging way. So with my mind kind of already trained like that, it was more that I just sort of identified this wider problem in the world where it felt like, there was a language barrier where there were a lot of people who didn't fully understand or just even know this wider range of gender identities. And it just kind of compelled, it brought out that, the art director in me, what I do in my job every day, it just kind of, triggered something in me that this felt like a problem that I wanted to solve, and I wanted to do something about it.
And so, how long ago was this book created?
So I first came up with the idea for this book in 2017, and that was when there was a lot of conversation happening around gender identity. It was under the Trump administration when there was a lot of conversation about, trying to suppress these different genders, and it's just something that I felt very strongly about, and I felt like there needs to be a little bit of a greater awareness around it, because with greater awareness, that's when we can have more conversations. That's when we're able to accept more as well, just because we understand it.
Right. And so I find that within the English language, there are new words that make their way into our existence. And so, you define words such as ungender, gender fluid. And so I wonder, like, first of all, where did you find, how did you do your research, right? And why was it so important for you to define these words for kids, specifically for kids? Are you a parent yourself?
I'm actually not a parent yet, but I am going to have kids someday, hopefully, and I do feel like it's important to normalize this idea of multiple genders from a young age. Many, I think, in my generation grew up only learning that there were two genders, boy and girl, man and woman, and that's actually it's not necessarily true. And children actually begin kind of exploring their gender and kind of grasping what sort of gender they feel closely aligned to from as young as 3 years old. So it's actually pretty important for them to have this understanding of the wider range of gender identities that exist, just in case there is something that they are kind of aligning with and something that they're feeling closely connected to, and maybe don't necessarily have the words to describe it yet.
Right. And
So
so,
a little.
yeah, no, I just wanted to elaborate further on that kind of research, right? Like, how are you able to identify that kids at that age are already identifying with their identity? I mean, that's a really
Yeah,
young
so
age, you know? But are you saying it's
it
in the
is.
language? Is that what you're saying? It's in the language of the household? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the problem is that it's not necessarily, these terms in this language is not necessarily used in the household from a young age, even though it should be. But I think it's more about, this idea of boy and girl. And from a young age, children begin kind of identifying very closely with one or the other. They start to realize how it is they feel, and they also start to realize, if they don't feel the way that they are being taught that they should feel. And that can be a very confusing type of feeling to have at that age, when you can't understand why you maybe don't feel the way that you're being told you should feel, and you don't have the rest of the words or the understanding to describe that. And, children also pick up a lot from the way people react around them, whether that's their family, their teachers, their peers. And so if nobody around them is kind of talking about, other options and other possibilities, it can be a very difficult sort of experience for a child to go through, to feel like they're not understood and that they don't feel the way that everyone around them expects them to feel.
So even though this is the ABCs, and it seems as though it's geared towards children, it's really geared towards the adults so that they have the language to reference.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really geared towards a book for parents to use with their children to kind of start that conversation from an early age. So just so that there's this greater awareness, so that if there is one of these feelings or identities that a child can start to identify with, they have a little bit of that language. And maybe even if they don't feel that way themselves, or if they don't feel that way yet, they have the tools to kind of greater understand people around them, to really empathize and understand how other people might be feeling and other people might be identifying. And it's honestly a great resource even for parents themselves. The idea is really to start normalizing non-binary genders from a young age so that it just becomes part of our vocabulary and understanding as we grow up. But for the parents who haven't necessarily grown up, with this knowledge and awareness, it's really a great resource for them as well.
Right, right. And of course there's the inclusivity and like as you mentioned, the normalizing of the inclusivity and not even
Yeah,
perhaps having to use the term inclusivity. It just be, right? And so before we
exactly.
go really quickly, can you just share with us the book journey into becoming a national and global success? Is it translated into other languages?
It's not translated, but it is available globally all over the world. I think the biggest markets right now are the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, but it's pretty much available all over. And the journey was really interesting. It was something that I started on my own. As I said, it was a topic I just felt strongly about, and I wanted to see what I could do to kind of help solve this problem. So I created this book, and I luckily had the skill set of being able to not only write it but also design it and illustrate it myself. And I started off by kind of creating it and self-publishing it and just taking it to bookstores and being like, this is my book, I would love for you to sell it. And people were really receptive towards it. There were people who wrote letters thanking me for creating a book like this and giving them the tools to be able to finally have this conversation with their children or their brother or their sister or their parents. So it was a really great experience. And then from there, it actually just got picked up by the publishing house, Jessica Kingsley Publisher, and then that's when they sort of took it to that international level and were able to start selling it and distributing it all over the world.
Well. Congratulations, turning your one
Thank
woman
you.
show into an expanded must have item in everyone's household. And thank you for sharing it with our viewers, everyone. That's Devika Dalal, author, designer, and illustrator of ABC of Gender Identity. ABC of Gender Identity is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And for more information, you can visit devikadalal.com. All right, we got to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll hear about a new docu-series highlighting the resiliency of New York City's creatives during the height of the pandemic. Don't go anywhere. Hey everyone, welcome back. So, Performers to Spectators COVID-19 NYC is an inspiring 6-episode docuseries that features musicians, singers, comedians, actors, dancers, and circus artists when performing arts were seen as a threat to human health. Performance to Spectators is a tribute to their tenacity, adaptability, and ingenuity when during a pandemic they continued to pursue and realize their artistic passions. Shot during the height of the pandemic, here now to tell us more is Performance to Spectators COVID-19 NYC's producer and director Melisa Ramos and director of photography, Miguel Miller. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Rhina. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here with us. Congratulations on this. How long has this project been in the making? I know it's already been completed, but if you shot it in the height of the pandemic, I want to assume you started in 2020.
In 2021, I think,
So that was the second wave of the height of the pandemic,
a year and a half.
a year and a half. So in the fact, because of the fact, this is a question for both of you. We're going to start with both of you. The docuseries was shot during the height of the pandemic, and so what was it like being in an empty outdoor city? Were you guys afraid at all? We can start with you, Melisa.
Well, being in I think it was um, like unreal. It was a very unreal experience. It was for me, I would say, sort of dystopic to go out there and see Times Square empty, the bridges empty, the streets empty, like just corresponders, first responders, just that.
Yeah, I can only imagine, and for you, Miguel, that must have been like a very interesting capture, right? Because when will we ever see New York like that? And hopefully, we never will.
For me, was a little different. It was surreal, like Melissa described it. Very surreal because I've always imagined New York being this super loud, overly crowded, where everybody's. And then I come in and we go to a train station, and there's literally the two of us in some trains, and we look at each other and we're like, whoa. And to see the personal cleaning at the stations, like a sea of people just cleaning, and there's nobody there, and I'm thinking, oof. And then there's other trains that we took, and it was full of workers. And Melissa and I'm thinking, well, maybe they have COVID, maybe they don't. But part of us was also very excited, super, super excited to be doing this. I was extremely motivated when Melissa told me about the project and the idea of doing this. So that, to be honest, sort of kind of took over our emotions. The rest of it was just surreal. Seriously surreal.
Got it. So yeah, I mean, I want to say, that was a daring move, a daring act to just move forward. However, a very important factor within our existence, because this particular time period is going to live on for years to come. And so I understand, excuse me, that the series features musicians, singers, comedians, actors, dancers, and circus artists. So how did you choose your artists, Melissa?
Well, first, I started to approach a lot of artists that I know, right, and that I admire, and that I asked them to share the stories, and I was wondering, like, how do you feel, right, as an artist that needs a stage, and the stage are closed. But a lot of people were resistant, to just meet someone else. So I was like, listen, it's only two. We are bringing this big lenses, and you can be like 10 feet apart from me or 12. Like it's what you want. And we would get our COVID test every week, before having the interviews. And at first, a lot of people wanted us to do it like online, and I was like, oh, I just want this to have broadcasting quality. I want everyone to look good, to sound good. I want, it is a challenge. It's only the two of us,
Right.
and us being safe and making you safe.
Right.
So as time passed, that then the restrictions were less, then it started to be more open, and then artists that first said no, they were like, okay, now I feel better, I'll do it. And then I started choosing by the skill, right, that you do. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I'm an actor. What about a comedian, right? We don't think that comedians are stage artists.
Right.
We think
Right.
they
Well, but the thing is that comedians, out of all the artists, really, really rely on having an audience because that's their exchange.
yes, that's the energy, and that's how they harness their craft,
Yeah.
right? So um, then I have some friends online that I really admire their work, like this circus artist, and I asked her, I wonder if you want to be interviewed, because her work is so different, you know. And she risked her life every day at the circus. And you know, she told us, but it's a risk that I plan.
Right.
COVID is not.
Right. So you know, was this pre-vaccination or post-vaccination? I'm just curious.
Pre-vaccination.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking for clarity in how everybody was moving, what the intentions were, where the hesitation came from, and the importance of actually capturing their stories, right? Because the person you're referring to, I think she serves as a ringleader, right? Serves as a ringleader for the Big Apple Circus.
That is Storm Herrero. She's a singer, and she was the ringmaster.
The ringmaster, yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so, Miguel, you just said you're in Florida, right? And so, do you reside in Florida? Did you fly into New York to do this?
I did.
Wow.
That was a challenge too, because it being just Melisa and I, every time I traveled to New York, I had to bring everything with me. All my lights, the cameras, sound equipment. So it was a task. And then prep for going there. Part of it I needed to test before my travel for COVID, and make sure I remain like completely sealed from any kind of exposure or anything, because I did not want to risk it and go there and then all of a sudden test positive. So that preparation was interesting. It was very, very interesting. I had to check equipment. Somebody would come with me, also checking equipment. We'd shift it all to Melisa's place, bring it up to her place, and then we'll take the equipment as we were going along. So it's literally, as she said, it was just her and I to do everything. Sometimes we were at a train station, we have all these bags and all these things going around, and we're like, whoa, there's nobody here.
Yeah, like you're back to those guerrilla style days, right? How long did it take you guys to capture the whole thing?
I would say maybe 5 months.
In 5 months?
We began in November, in the winter. We did the whole November, December, January, February, March. And I did like 2 interviews before.
Right.
One that was, there are a few in location, like in their artist place.
Right.
One of them that was me, that was like just like sort of like the test that
right.
was with
and so we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that we get as much as we possibly can to inform people about your premiere on PBS. And so altogether, how many episodes are there? How many are, well, I already announced how many artists, but how many artists are in per episode?
It is 3 artists per episode, and 18 in total, 6 episodes.
6 episodes. And so, Miguel, how do you feel now that it's finally, I guess, going to air on PBS, which is a national network? So that's pretty cool.
Happy. Every interview, every one of those interviews was a learning lesson for me as an artist, because every time I interview or I saw Melisa interview any of those artists and their stories that they related to us, I came out of there rich. So seeing it now, that people will be able to see what we did, it's an incredible joy.
Well, I can't say it enough. I want to congratulate you both on this timepiece that is going to live on for years, and I mean many years to come. So congratulations on that. Thank you, Melisa Ramos, producer and director of Performers To Spectators, COVID-19 NYC, and the director of photography, Miguel Miller, from Performers To Spectators, COVID-19 NYC, will kick off Sunday, June 5th at 2:30 p.m. for Puerto Rican Pride Marathon in advance of the series, which premieres Monday, June 6th at 7 p.m. on PBS All-Star Arts Channel. For more information, visit FromPerformersToSpectators.com. We do have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll hear about the new politically incorrect comedy adaptation of Shakespeare's Hamlet. Don't go anywhere. back to Open in Studio. So, Hamlet in Harlem is a politically incorrect comedy with promises of murder, mystery, offensive stereotypes, and cultural appropriations. When an empathetic Caucasian filmmaker wants to make an all Latino version of Hamlet that takes place in El Barrio. The only problem is that, well, he doesn't know much about Latinos. He doesn't know much about Harlem, and he doesn't know much about Hamlet either. So Hamlet in Harlem is going to have you laughing out loud as it addresses important issues of media representation, gender roles, cultural appropriation, and the relevance of classic literature. Here now to tell us more is Hamlet in Harlem's playwright and director, Alberto Ferreras.
Hey, how you
Hi.
doing, Rhina?
I'm
So good to see you.
likewise, likewise, likewise. I mean, for in this manner anyway. But thank you for making the time to share this lovely journey that you created
I'm a
during the
fan.
pandemic. ¿Cómo?
I couldn't help it. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of yours. So how could I miss this opportunity?
I love it. So, and thank you for that. Thank you. I hope not to disappoint in the process. And what I mean by that is not here on air. I'm actually part of this rendition of the show. But we're going to talk about that later. Right now, I want to share with our viewers that, Alberto, you're primarily known for your television and film work. I mean, for those of you who don't know, he is the creator of the Habla campaign on HBO. And so I was just curious to know what made you decide to write a play in the height of the pandemic, and most importantly, does your work choose you or do you choose your work?
I know somebody said that, and I can't remember who that was, but it was someone real smart who said that he writes when, or she, maybe it was a she, said when those characters won't leave you alone. Like when you go to bed at night and you start hearing them talking to you, hopefully not in a psychotic way, but I came up with the idea of doing Hamlet in Harlem originally as a screenplay. And in the pandemic, what happened is that I said, wow, maybe this could work as a play. And very often, sorry, we're in New York, you might hear an ambulance in the background. What happens very often is that if I come up with an idea that works here, then I keep thinking about it and it works there as well. My first love, and I think yours too,
Yes.
is theater.
Theater. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so let's face it, especially for any artists watching the show, it's not easy to make a living with theater, you know?
Yes.
It's a little challenging. Not impossible, but challenging. And honestly, I've done theater a few times in New York, but it's so much time and it's so much dedication. And then that you say, wow, I'm not sure if I have the energy. But this time, maybe because of the pandemic, I said, I like this story so much, and people who read the script seem to like it as well. Let's give it a try. So first we had a reading on Zoom. People liked it. Then we had a reading in front of an audience in 2021, and people loved it. And then we got an invitation from Theater for the New City to stage it for 12 shows, and that happened in April 2022.
And wait, wasn't each show sold out?
It's sold out. Like honestly, the first two shows were a little bit slow, like people were, but I guess word
It
of mouth.
picked up,
worked.
right.
And the last 2 weeks were basically sold out every show, and it was a big surprise because also it's a very minimalist show. Maybe because my background is in production, I always try to simplify things. It's like, oh, we need an elephant, and I'm like, can we use a cat?
Right.
And
That's the
most
magic of
time-
the theater. That's the magic of the theater interpretation.
Most of the time it works. You didn't need an elephant. Yeah, a cat could do.
Right. Got it.
So we made the play so lean and so focused on a story which we think is a good story. It's a story that I find funny and sadly true. It's about how misrepresented Latinos are and have been in media for decades. And my cast has been fantastic. I've been blessed to work with amazing actors, 9 of them actually. So they're not always available, and that's when I was looking for an actress for the next couple of shows that we have scheduled in June, and I said this would be the perfect role for Rhina Valentin. So Rhina Valentin came to the rescue, and if you anyone watching this show, if she's too shy to tell you that you need to come to Theater for the New City June 10th or 11th to see her on stage, you better come. You know what I'm saying?
Gosh. It's a juicy role, I might add. ¿Cómo?
And so you can sign that autograph in person.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And that's very humbling. But I really enjoy the role. It's a very juicy role. And that's all I'm going to say. You have to come and see it in order to understand what I'm saying. And so and thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to this. But I do want to share with our viewers why you chose the title Hamlet in Harlem.
Well, first of all, it was a funny, catchy title, and basically we're telling the story of someone who with very good intentions, wants to tell a story about Latinos, but this person doesn't have the information to do it, and maybe he's too shy or too. I think in some cases people have bad intentions. In some cases people are just misinformed, and they don't realize that if you're going to tell a story about a certain group, you better surround yourself by that group. It's a good idea to actually co-write it with people who are part of the experience that you want to write about, and that's a conversation that we often have when it comes to Latino media.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so and so wants to make tell a Mexican story. And we say, oh, you have to be Mexican. You have to be Mexican, or you have to team up with people who know the story, so you don't appropriate a story that you shouldn't be telling necessarily, not because you cannot tell a story that is not yours personally, but because it's a story that you don't know enough about. And if we team up, if we understand each other, and then we tell stories that are faithful to our experiences, it's going to allow us not only to tell those stories, but to connect.
Right.
Not only writing it, but watching the story to help us understand each other, which is, I think, ultimately, I know it sounds a little sappy, but it's what art should be about. It should be about us. It should be about helping us understand each other and connect with each other.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hate each other, which is what very often happens in the media nowadays.
Right, because somebody else is controlling the narrative, and in essence, what this show is going to do is it's going to teach people a lesson as well, right? And not only on behalf of us as Latinx, but just in the matter of you. In essence, what Alberto is saying is like, we appreciate you sharing our stories, but it would probably be a lot more accurate if you were including a person who has the ability to tell that story from an authentic place.
Yes, and very often storytelling is, it has to do with talent, it has to do with access to resources, and it's wonderful when someone who has the talent and the access helps tell a story that might not necessarily represent his personal background, but team up.
Right.
Listen to us.
Right.
Bring us into the party. It should be a story that we're all telling. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what the play is about somehow. But it's funny. Hey,
yeah, indirectly.
It's like a very serious sociological thing.
Oh my gosh, it's hilarious, actually. It's very clever. He's a very clever man, Alberto Ferreras, and so the story itself has a lot of layers, and there's a lot of innuendos, and there's a lot of what we would say in Spanish indirectas, and really it's an eye opener while it being funny. It's very humorous. It's extremely humorous, actually.
And I think that, first of all, I honestly, if you're going to tell me a story, if it's funny, there's a chance I'm going to stay until the end. And look at, I think the most interesting news shows, in the last, 5-10 years, the best news shows are actually Colbert and Jon Stewart, and all these comedians are managing to package these very difficult to swallow news and engage us, and in some cases activate us. So I do believe that humor could be a tool to share important information and to make us understand the world that we live in.
I love it. I love it. Alberto Ferreras giving everybody a cocotazo with Hamlet in Harlem.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Any excuse to, talk a little bit about Shakespeare, but not in a stuffy way. Shakespeare, the guy knew what he was doing. So, it's about also discussing if what this guy wrote 600 years ago, 600, 400, so many years ago, is actually still relevant today. And I think it is. So you guys, I'm telling you, come see this show. It's going to be fun. And it's short. So
it's short, it's fun, it's clever, and it does honor Shakespeare as well. So once again, thank you, Alberto Ferreras, Hamlet in Harlem, playwright and director. By the way, you guys, Hamlet in Harlem is taking place on Friday and Saturday, June 10th and June 11th at Theater for the New City, located at 155 First Avenue between 9th and 10th Avenue. For tickets and information, visit theaterforthenewcity.net. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay tuned because Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.
Begin our look at sports with the passage of summer. Memorial Day weekend ushered in the 106th running of the Indy 500. I'm delivering your morning sports this morning from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where Marcus Ericsson, aka the Sneaky Swede, took home his first Borg Warner trophy in the greatest spectacle in racing. All-time great Scott Dixon dominated early, but Ericsson pulled away late over the final 2 laps to win a 2-lap shootout with Arrow McLaren SP driver Pato O'Ward at the famed Brickyard. The 31-year-old Chip Ganassi driver started 5th and helped CGR earn its 5th Indy 500 win, first since 2012. The team's managing director, Mike Hull, provided some perspective on the day and high praise for the former Formula One driver emerging in the IndyCar series.
This is a globally significant event. If you're lucky enough to travel around the world and go to motorsports events, you realize that. And he won a globally significant motor race under a lot of pressure. If that doesn't demonstrate to the world how special this guy is, there's nothing we can do about it.
In his previous 2 IndyCar wins, Ericsson came from behind, hence the nickname, and seemingly came out of nowhere to victory lane. This time he was a serious contender coming into the weekend after running well in qualifications.
After the last pit stop, he didn't lift once. Just held his foot to the floor. It steered, and they didn't have to make any changes on the car the whole day. And they just put tires on it, tires and fuel. And you always hear that about the cars that win the Indianapolis 500. It's a clean day, and they don't touch the car, and sure enough, they win.
The Indy 500 winner weaved through the field using a legal maneuver being called the Dragon on his way to glory in a race known for history, tradition, pageantry, and of course, speed.
The only thing that could stop us was a caution, and of course that caution came. It's not supposed to be easy to win the 500, and those 10 minutes sitting there in the pit lane during that red flag was some of the hardest 10 minutes of my life, probably. Thinking what to do and thinking that I'm leading the biggest race in the world and I'm that close to win it. And I knew Pato was going to have a run on me because up front, we've seen all month, it's really hard to defend when you're up front. And I was actually, sitting during dinner here at the Speedway on the infield last night, talking with Dario about this type of scenario. If I'm leading when it's towards the end of the race, the last couple of laps, what to do, how to break the toe of the car behind, where to place the car. So we had that very conversation last night, and that was in my mind when I was sitting there during that red flag. And then I just tried to go out and execute that plan I had made in my head. Pato had a really good run on me. I wanted to put him on the outside because I knew it was going to be hard to go around my outside, and I was not going to lift. There was no way I was going to lift. So I just kept my foot down, and that was the race-winning move.
More on the IndyCar experience in my C list. Racing headlines at top spot here on 5 on 5, 5 sports stories and recap, and 5 to watch out for. The Indy 500 here in the States on the Sunday before Memorial Day, F1 in Monaco, and the capper is always NASCAR in Charlotte with the Coke 600. More on that in just a moment. Red Bull's Sergio Perez collected his first victory of the season and his first in the Principality on the French Riviera to close within 15 points of the championship lead. Checo is the first Mexican to win in Monaco and the first North American to triumph in that race since 1981. In NASCAR, Denny Hamlin survives 2 overtime restarts to win a wild war of attrition in Charlotte. That completed the racing trifecta on Sunday. Meantime, the New York Rangers were looking to complete some comeback of their own in round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They pushed the series to 7 games, squaring off with Carolina on Memorial Day.
Talk about epic turnarounds. No quit New York. The Broadway Blue Shirts pushed the second round to 7 games and finally pull out a road win in Carolina. Here's Adam Fox on a Memorial Day to remember for the surging Rangers.
You know, backs against the wall 5 times now, and we've come through all 5. So definitely want to keep this momentum going into the next round. You know, we do have bigger goals. Obviously, it's a huge accomplishment for our team. But, you know, we just want to carry it into the next round here. I don't know if you ever want to, you know, be too comfortable. Obviously, they have a lot of firepower on that team. Obviously, getting the first and the second was big. And I think once it's 2-0, you want to get that next one. And Stromer burying that third one was huge. You know, then it kind of went back and forth in the third. But, you know, you never want to sit back and, you know, crazy things have happened in these types of games. So, but, yeah, we obviously felt comfortable when we got that multi-goal lead.
And at number 3, the Bronx Bombers dropped 2 out of 3 to the rival Tampa Bay Rays, but are still among the top 3 teams in the Major League Baseball rankings, along with the Amazons. The Mets grabbed the 2 spot by sweeping their divisional rivals, the Philadelphia Phillies. The calendar may have just turned over to the month of June, but it's looking more and more like a Subway Series daily here in the Big Apple. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. On this date in Bronx sports history, slides in here at number 2, June 3rd, 1932 is the day that the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig, hit a home run in his first 4 at-bats against the then Philadelphia Athletics. The Yankee great became the first in the modern era to do so, a feat not even his teammate, the legendary Babe Ruth, had ever accomplished. The pride of the Yankees stole some headlines from the Babe that day. And in at number 1, our Bronx Athlete of the Week nabbed some headlines of his own. Perhaps the most underappreciated goalie in Major League Soccer plays here in the Bronx. Sean Johnson is an absolute stud for the New York City Football Club. He stopped everything in a 1-0 win over Minnesota for the reigning MLS Cup champions. The dub places them atop the Eastern Conference standings. The 32-year-old is now unscored upon in his last 6 starts. Sean Johnson, my player of the week. To the back end of 5 on 5 we go. Per usual, we'll count up here. And at number 1, the Yankees host Detroit this weekend at the stadium before heading to Minnie Tuesday to open a road series. Meanwhile, at number 2, the Mets continue their West Coast swing in L.A. 3 more with the mighty L.A. Dodgers this weekend. Those 2 appear on a collision course in the National League. In the 3rd spot, the NBA Finals continue this weekend. Boston and Golden State got underway last night in game number 1. Game 2 is Sunday in California before the series comes east for game 3 in Boston Wednesday night. In the 4th spot, the race for the Stanley Cup continues with the conference finals in mid-swing. And at 5, we open with racing and we'll close with racing. IndyCar looks to build off an awesome Indy 500 weekend this weekend in Detroit. The Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix is Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Those are the headlines. We hit the C-list for some perspective on what it's like to be behind the wheel in the Indy 500. Racing royalty Mario Andretti was 53 years old when he ran his best lap ever in IndyCar, 234 miles per hour at Michigan International Speedway. For anyone that missed our show last week, we got the opportunity of a lifetime to ride along with the only man to win the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, and the Formula One crown. And we did it in the racing capital of the world at the world's most famous speedway. For the most part, I let the video speak for itself, but I wanted to chime in this go around to articulate the feeling of going 180 miles per hour plus with the legend. Now, that speed is nowhere near 234 miles per hour, but man oh man, the G's on your body and the speed itself is truly remarkable. We did 2 laps around the speedway and got a taste of what it's like out there. Our footage really captures that sensation, but imagine adding in another 40 to 50 miles per hour and 198 more laps for a total of 500 miles consecutively. And instead of being one car, you'd be racing with 32 others at that speed while over 300,000 people look on. In my mind, the only somewhat comparable comparison for an open-wheel racing driver is perhaps a fighter pilot. And in sports terms, there is no comparison. Yeah, I've got a need for speed, but I'll leave the speed to the professionals. Watching the Indy 500 from the media center does the trick just fine for me. That's your look at sports. Signing off from the racing capital of the world, I'm Bobby C.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Open. Our last guests are the members of Rebolu, an Afro-Colombian musical ensemble composed of some of the finest Colombian musicians in the United States. Their mission is to promote the rich musical traditions of their ancestors, the Afro-descendants of Colombia's Caribbean coast. Here to share more is percussionist Johanna Castañeda and vocalist, composer, and gaitero Rebolu. Hello and welcome.
Hello, everybody. Saludos, everyone. Oh my goodness, this is what happens when you're in a house with doggies and everything. They start barking. He's getting excited, but we're super excited to be part of this program. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about what we do, this wonderful music that we are sharing with the world.
Yeah. So I guess your dog wants to be on air with you.
I think so.
Those were your co-workers for the past 2.5 years. Yeah, I mean, we're going on 3 now. Pero nada, let's talk about Grupo Rebolu and when it was founded. And you know what? Let's just start with the word Rebolu and translate it to our audience and why you chose that name.
Of course, yeah. This word actually was chosen by our percussionist in the band, Morris Cañate. They're from Barranquilla. Rano and Morris are friends from where back in Colombia, and they just had this word. It's a Caribbean word, I think a lot of the Caribbean countries use this word. In Colombia, it's used as Rebolu, and it means kind of like it's a gathering. Something's happening over there, and there's a bunch of people gathering together to have an awesome time. So we kind of just use it as that because every time you see us on stage, most likely you want to come together with us and just kind of have fun, with the music.
Yeah, I like that translation. For us, it's more of like, oh, there's a mess.
Well, I must say it kind of gets messy because everyone is always like dancing and just having a blast. Right? Like party. It's a big party.
Who doesn't love a big party? That's a mess. So, Ronald, as the composer for Rebolu's reinterpretation of traditional Afro-Colombian rhythms, like, what does that look like for you, and what is your process like fusing it into a modern sound?
Well, first of all, I try to make the melodies, and then I mix with everything I hear in New York, especially in New York, and I mix with my music, with my tradition.
It's like a combination of everything he brought from Colombia and he learned, which is the traditional part. And then once you're in New York, where you get to see so many cultures and so many music from all over the world, you start kind of fusing, everything together. So you get this one sound that is tradition with urban, funky sound.
especially from New York City.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. It's like it's seated in there, and then you can tell that it's evolved from the actual root, right? And so, Johanna, I wanted to ask you, as a woman, right, who plays cuatro and percussion for that matter, like, and as far as I know, these particular instruments are male dominated. So I was just curious to know, like, what inspired you to learn how to play those instruments?
So I mean, I'm gonna say I mainly sing. I do play cuatro because I started my musical career just playing some music from Colombia and Venezuela called música llanera. It's from the eastern plains of Colombia. Very traditional music, which usually is played with a cuatro and a harp. So I learned it when I was very very young, and it has been my loyal companion for many many years. And then the percussion, I only play minor percussion, very small instruments like the guache and also the maracas. But I've learned it with these guys. I mean, I've learned it with Ronald, with Morris, and then also our drummer, who's a female, Erika Parra, it's an honor to have a female drummer in our band and kind of represent that woman power in the musical field, right? Because yes, it is male dominated. So there's a lot of females that, we're here to empower, all the musical females in the world. So we can show that it's possible,
Right.
that we're
Exactly.
here.
Exactly. Equal opportunity and inclusivity. That's what we're all about here on this show. And so, speaking of instruments, Ronald, I introduced you being a guaitero, but I don't know if our audience knows what that is. Can you just share with everyone what a guaitero is?
Sure, sure. I got my guitar. It's a little bit far from here, but I can get it if you give me a little time.
So
So
you
it's a,
can see what a gaita is. But basically, let me explain about this unique instrument. This is it's a wooden flute made out of a cactus tree, which is amazing. It's very native, very traditional. It's also at the top of the flute. It's mixed charcoal with beeswax, and then it has a duck feather where he actually uses to blow and get the sound out, basically. So it's a very native instrument, and I don't know. Do we have time to show that?
I think we do in image form, so we can show them in an image form. And thank you for breaking it down. I just want to be clear. Did I hear cactus? Did I hear cactus?
yeah, the real cactus. Yeah,
You
it's right
did.
in the middle. You're gonna find the wood.
You kind of get it out of a certain type of cactus tree, and it's out of the middle of the stem of the cactus. And they just kind of get a piece of wood, they hollow it out, they make some holes in it, and they just kind of put it together. It's obviously handcrafted. So it's amazing to see how these instruments are made, and it just represents Colombia. It's just
Yeah.
us.
It's fascinating how when you revisit like our ancestry and how what mind, like where were they when they decided, what, I'm going to make an instrument from the bark of a cactus, right?
I
Yeah.
know that's crazy.
All right.
I know.
So we're running out of time, but before we go, really quickly, I need to share with our audience why it's so important for you guys to uphold the Afro-Colombian folkloric music in your sound.
Well, definitely, it just represents us. It represents our culture. It represents our beautiful country, Colombia, which Colombia is just it's a country full of music, full of culture. We have over 1,000 rhythms in the whole entire country. So you can find anything basically. This music that we do, it's from the North Coast, but you can imagine from all the regions. You will find different instruments, different rhythms. So we're just trying to basically represent, a little part, a little piece of our country, and we just want to show it to the world. And where it's an honor for us to be able to represent that. And we have been able to travel all over the world, showing and basically educating and letting people know that we exist, that this region exists, that these instruments exist, and we're just very proud to do that.
Wonderful, and we're going to give our audience a taste of your modernized version of it. That was Johanna Castañeda, vocalist, composer. I'm sorry, vocalist and cuatro player and minor percussionist, and then we have composer and guaitero Ronald Polo from Grupo Rebolu. You guys don't go anywhere because when we return, Rebolu is going to perform for us after the break. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Here now to perform ¿Qué pasó? Let's give it up for Rebolu.
¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Acabo de llegar, ya pasa tiempo y tú no llegas, ay vida mía. No sé por qué razón yo pienso, también sabía que tardaría. Ya ha pasado una hora, no te espero todo el día. Por más que yo a ti te quiera, aquí no me quedaría. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Ya te esperé lo suficiente, tengo que irme vida mía. Porque hay un dicho muy presente, la luz no alumbra todo el día. Y por más que yo te espere, yo sé que no llegarías. Y también está lloviendo y la noche llegaría. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Acabo de llegar. ¿Qué pasó? Dijiste que venía, sucedió. Y tanto que te esperé, pero nunca llegaste. Y por eso, Rebolu, Rebolu, pa' que lo goces tú. ¿Para qué te espero? ¿Para qué te llamo? No voy a esperar, no voy a esperar, no voy a esperar, no voy a esperar. ¿Para qué te espero? Mejor yo te olvido. No voy a esperar, no voy a esperar, no voy a esperar, no voy a esperar. Ya no llegarás, ya no llegarás. ¿Y qué pasó?
¿Y qué pasó? Bueno, that was Rebolu. Bravo. Their new album, Mi Herencia, My Heritage, is out on all streaming platforms. For events and more information, visit gruporebolu.com. That is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to all our guests for coming through and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you miss any part of the show, you can check out the recablecast tonight and 24 hours a day at BronxNet.tv. I'm Rhina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, as always, may the universe provide paz, prosperity, y amor. Happy Pride, and God, it feels so good to be back in the studio. Adiós.
Por más que yo te espere, yo sé que no llegarías. Y también está lloviendo y la